Check. There we go. We're getting some volume. We're about 30 seconds away to starting this game. I have no sound myself, so I can't hear my voice. There is a delay, so I'm going to take off these headphones, and it looks like we've got volume. So I am G.I. Jones.
And I am Sonia Blade.
And we are here for the Montreal Montreals against the Minnesota Men's Roller Derby. I'm going to run through the rosters. For Montreal, we start with 101 Jumper Cut. Number 247, Saturday. Number 300, White Shark. Number 345, PETA. Number 42, Luke Ness Monster. Number 5, Red. Number 50, Buddy Ollie. Number 53, Fred Auster. 71, The Rev. 7804, Viking Size. Number 8, Marcus. And number 84, Pastor Nostro.
And for Minnesota Men's Roller Derby, number 0405, Paul of Duty, 27, York, 308, Carl Marksman, 31, Jamit Dim, 404, Firewally, 42, Egon Strangler, 540, Merlin, 608, Baron Von Beans, and number 66, Samson.
And the coaches for the teams, Montreal is Small Fry, and Minnesota Men's is Slasha.
Is it happening at 5 or happening at 7? I guess this will be the big decider here. Looks like our officials are just about ready to go. The teams are lining up.
Montreal sending out number 7804, Viking Size, to jam up against. What number is that? It looks like 404, Firewally for Minnesota Men's Roller Derby. Minnesota is in white, Montreal is in red, if that helps at all.
And there we go, Firewally out of the pack first. We'll get the first lead jammer status for this game. Comes around, meanwhile, Viking fighting at the front against the group of MRDA blockers. Not getting much success, getting knocked out and recycled. Wally at the back being held back by one single blocker as he absorbs into his teammate.
Viking Size with one blocker left to beat, and he makes it through for his initial pass, but Wally puts 5 in the sky and calls it off.
First points of the game going to Minnesota Men's Roller Derby. Montreal getting locked out on that jam. On the line, coming up next, number 540, Merlin is going to line up against number... It's hard to see the numbers. Number 101, Jumper. Penalty box remaining empty so far.
And the jam is on. Montreal is your lead jammer.
Merlin getting knocked out and recycled as Jumper makes his way around on his initial pass, coming in for his scoring pass, steps around and dances through the pack, and a last swing and a miss hit, and he will put 5 points on the board as Merlin sits down for the first jammer penalty of the game, which will put Montreal on a power jam.
Pack at a standstill at turn number 4 as Jumper comes in for a scoring pass. Montreal sending up an offensive blocker, hoping to create some confusion in that 4-wall. Jumper getting knocked to the outside, tries to tiptoe on that inside line, takes a hit. He's going to recycle himself back and play it safe as number 540, Merlin, has finished serving his penalty.
Jumper at the front, getting knocked a little inside, steps in, but then comes back around, peels around the outside, gets put out, and doesn't realize the blocker went down with him. Steps out, decides to call it off.
And that is a 15-point jam for Montreal. Minnesota still at 5 points.
Up on the jam line, both number 42s for the teams. We've got Egon Strangler going up against a Luke Ness Monster. And penalty box empty.
Work ourselves silly, we were so early. Usually we just tap it and start over.
Egon Strangler getting knocked to that inside, recycles himself back.
Luke Ness also getting knocked out and has to come all the way back and try again. Some offense, some wonderful offense by Saturday, as Luke Ness couldn't take advantage of it, is still stuck at the front.
Still no lead jammer as the pack comes around turn number 2. And Egon Strangler is your lead jammer.
Egon Strangler with lead comes in, goes right through the pack, will put on 5 unanswered points as it looks like a star pass has been completed by Montreal. Saturday now with the star in his hand, has not put it on his head yet as Egon makes his way back into the pack, attempts an apex jump, does not complete it.
Egon Strangler getting instructions from his bench to call it off, and he does, holding Montreal to 0 points. Minnesota picking up 5 in that round, giving us a total of 15 for Montreal, 10 Minnesota.
4.5 minutes long so far on this contest.
Close game, only 5 points between the two teams right now. Looks like Viking is going to be back out there. Viking size lining up against number 404, Fire Wally once again. Both jammers into the pack. Fire Wally at the front. Viking getting knocked out, almost picking up a cut. He hesitates and then steps back in legally with no problem. Removes the cover from his helmet, looking to execute a star pass to Red. Red not taking the star pass, Viking carrying on through.
Those blockers from Minnesota were held up on Red, giving Viking size the edge to get through that pack for his pass.
Score 15-4. Just over 5 minutes gone.
A 1-point game right now, 15-14. And an official timeout being called by the NSOs to confirm that the clocks are matching.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Nerd Roller Skates, who have a booth here. And they also have a store in Calgary and offer free shipping on purchases over $150. Free shipping within Canada. If you're in the U.S., you're on your own.
That's right. And just tracking the comments on the YouTube video, I hadn't noticed there. Yes, Yusuf, maple syrup. I remember those maple syrup shots at the Men's Roller Derby World Cup last time the only time I was over there. Hopefully I'll bring some down for the next time I visit. And good to see you guys listening and tuning in to the feed.
Also, we all know roller derby costs money. If you'd like to make a donation to help cover the cost of this live feed, please send PayPal to finance@mainlandmisfits.com. Any amount helps.
Obviously, as we know, we're sitting here with Reese, who's running left and right. He's putting headphones on. He's making sure the feed works. We just have to step onto the mic and talk. It's really simple. And with that, we're back to the game. Jumpercut at the front now, jamming for Montreal, and number 540, Merlin, for MMRD.
Merlin being locked down by a solid wall of Montreal. Jumpercut sneaking through that pack. He's got one blocker left to beat. And he picks up 5 points for Montreal.
Of course, Montreal with the lead in this jam. Merlin not getting anywhere along that blocking wall of 2 and 2. It seems Montreal has taken the tactic of splitting up the defense. Of course, as I say that now, they absorb into a 4-wall triangle/diamond. Merlin, no success, though.
Merlin took off the star, passed it to, if I can see, that is number 89. Sorry.
That's number 66, Samson,
66.
who got taken down by the track itself as he took off with the star in his hand. There's been a couple wheel issues we've noticed in the other games, and as the weekend goes on, I'm sure people will adjust their skating styles and their wheels for the floor. A little more humid out west here than it is in some places, but not as humid as out east sometimes.
Also, sorry, the font on the Minnesota jerseys is odd, so the 6s kind of do look like 8s. And with that, the jam is on. Number 42 jamming for Mount Royal. That's Luke Ness Monster up against the other 42, Egon Strangler. It's the battle of the 42s.
And at the front, Red helping his jammer get through and get lead. Big solid hits. Both jammers out of the pack and both coming around and in for some scoring pass action. Looks like 2 points going to Montreal on that pass.
0 for Minnesota. That brings us to 27 Montreal, 14 Minnesota.
Okay, Viking Size and Fire Wally lining up again. Looks like we're getting a pretty constant matchup of jammers. Fire Wally and Viking Size have matched up pretty much every time. Same thing with the number 42s, as we already mentioned, and Merlin and Juggernaut. And Viking Size having the advantage this time, takes the inside line, gets through and gets lead from Montreal.
Wally removing the star, trying to plan out his next move as his pivot comes in to provide some offense.
Viking Size seeing the inside line, takes it and gets through. He puts 5 points on the board.
Meanwhile, Fire Wally decides to keep that star. He's going to go around for a first scoring pass. Oh, but Viking Size calls it off before he can do so.
Receiving a big hit over on the other side. I didn't actually see it because of our positioning, but judging by the noise from the crowd, it definitely was a solid hit. Okay, jumper cut, of course, as mentioned earlier, matching up against Merlin. Seems to be a constant thing. Haven't been tracking the blockers, but I imagine we've got the same pretty much matchup on the track for both teams.
Seems like both teams have a similar jammer rotation. Probably 3 jammers apiece rotating.
That's correct. Numerically, Montreal a little bit superior. I see 3 scratches on my roster for the Minnesota Men's Roller Derby. And Merlin will take advantage of things and be first out of the pack with lead for MMRD.
Jumper cut out for his initial pass, hoping to put on some pressure, which he does. Merlin's going to call that off. 2 points for Minnesota.
That's a small chip, but it's a chip nonetheless, which is quite important when you're trying to climb back up. Of course, we still have 20 and a half minutes in this first half of the game. So, I mean, the spread isn't that huge yet, but yes, every little bit counts. Back to the track, we've got Viking Size lining up, and I'm going to assume he's lining up. No, we've changed the rotation. He's lining up against Egon Strangler, from what I can see. So we've done a little bit of a tweak there on the jamming lines.
They switched things up on us. Egon Strangler getting bridged back to the jam line. Viking Size having a tough time with that wall of Minnesota blockers at the front.
Viking Size has 1 less blocker to work against, and that blocker's red. He's about to come out of the penalty box. Meanwhile, Viking Size finally comes out, and it looks like there's going to be a cut track penalty assessed on number 42, Egon Strangler, who is going to sit down, and that's going to be power jam for Viking Size.
It is, with the penalty box filling up with Minnesota, leaving the track advantage to Montreal. Viking Size puts up 5 points in the sky as another Minnesota blocker comes to join their teammates.
That's a great power jam situation for Montreal right now, and they are taking advantage of it. 5 more points to Viking Size as the jammer and blocker are ready to leave the box for Minnesota to go back out on the track.
Some beautiful offensive work by Montreal. Viking Size through for another 5 points.
Saturday, though, picking up a penalty, is going to sit down as Egon Strangler comes out of the penalty box, hits the track, gets in, and actually gets his initial pass completed. So now Viking Size should be worried about what's coming, and he does. He calls off the jam, locking down Egon Strangler to 0 points.
Viking Size saw that beautiful apex jump by Egon Strangler. He wasn't going to let him do that again.
18 points for Montreal on that jam, 0 for Minnesota. Score right now 52-16. 1 in the box, 2 in the box actually. We've got Saturday sitting in front of us, number 308 Carl Marksman, who is also in there for MMRD. Dave, of course, has a little more time than Marksman does. And a timeout being called by Montreal. They're going to try to wrangle in the troops here and maybe settle things down. I see Paternostro calling. She is the captain for this bout, and she wants to get things under control on the bench. It's a good chance for Minnesota to take a breather, catch their breath. Like I said, they're skating with less skaters than Montreal.
We're almost halfway through the first half. It's a good time to take a break, refocus, take a breath, and get ready for the second quarter of this game.
It'd be kind of interesting if they did divvy up Derby into quarters, but I think the delay in the middle would kind of mess things up per quarter. I mean, but they don't do it in football. In football, they just change ends. So, I mean, don't they? No, quarter. I'm not a footballer. Now, of course, football all depends, of course, if you're talking soccer or football. But anyway, back to the track. So earlier, we saw Denver ground control playing against Dakota men's roller derby. That went 276-65. Denver taking the win on that. So the winner of this game will go and push forward and go up against Denver. So, of course, Montreal and Minnesota both hoping that that's them.
And that was the end of a Nerd Roller Skates timeout. Nerd Skates for people who roll.
Okay, we've got a new jammer in the rotation. That's number 5, Red, for Montreal, as 404 Fire Wally is back on the track with the star for Minnesota.
Red getting bridged back as Fire Wally is your lead jammer for Minnesota.
Red, no stranger to that helmet cover with the Team Canada on it. He does play for Team Canada and has played for Team Canada before and tries to get in and sneak a point. Fire Wally is aware of the situation, calls off the jam, puts 3 points on the board.
Smart move by Fire Wally. Up next on the jam line, we've got number 540, Merlin, up against number 42, Luke Ness Monster. They're switching up the jammer rotations on us. No more battle of the 42s.
There's a few hooligans in the crowd. Where are these guys?
Okay, I don't know what's going on, but there's a bunch of hooligans across the track making noises. Sounds like they are the popular team here this weekend. Merlin through the pack and out will pick up lead.
Luke Ness Monster getting knocked to that outside. He's getting bridged back all the way to the top of turn number 3.
He takes his star off. I don't know if he's going to execute a star pass or not. Saturday was there ready to accept it if that should arise. Very solid blocking line from MMRD.
Beautiful 3-wall Minnesota. And a sneaky star pass to number 247.
Saturday. That was. He deked right and somehow pushed off the star to his left, and Saturday was there to take it, and he just kept pushing as if he was the jammer. Now, of course, Montreal's jammer is Saturday, and he's going to dance with Merlin as they're both out of the pack and both coming in for a scoring pass. We'll see what Merlin does with this.
Merlin getting some instructions to call it, but he's holding off just long enough. Minnesota picking up 5 points in that jam.
That's right. And Merlin, what Merlin's goal was actually to slow things down because he had a blocker in the penalty box, and he was actually waiting till that blocker came out, delaying everything until he could, and that's exactly what happens. Nobody in the box right now. Juggernaut lining up against Egon Strangler. Penalty box is now empty.
Montreal's been having lots of luck with setting up at the back of the pack. Knocking Egon Strangler to the inside, bridging him back to the jam line.
That's Juggernaut's going to head to the penalty box on a cutting track penalty. It's going to put a power jam to Egon Strangler.
A much needed power jam situation for Minnesota as they sit at 24 points to Montreal's 52. And Egon Strangler is your lead jammer.
He punches on the speed and cuts right through the pack, and there we go. That's exactly what Minnesota needed right now.
Egon Strangler with only 3 blockers to take on from Montreal. Gets knocked to the outside by Red. And Red's going to bridge him all the way back to the pivot line.
Oh, so Egon Strangler runs into the blocker. Blocker goes down. He continues his push forward, picks up a penalty for hitting a down skater, and it's going to head to the penalty box.
Meanwhile, Juppercut tried to stay in on those toe stops, didn't quite make it. Getting knocked to that inside again and bridged back by Minnesota.
Skaters falling all over the place. Juppercut remaining standing, though. He's getting bumped to the inside and is going to get recycled through. Looks like he picked up a cutting the track penalty. Another jammer change here, and that will put Egon Strangler out on the track once again in a power jam situation with only 13 seconds left in this jam. He gets bumped out by Paternostro. She recycles him all the way back. Juppercut standing in the penalty box gets released at the last second. Juppercut released out of the penalty box. We're going to be empty in the penalty box for the start of the next jam. 5 points on the board there for Minnesota. Montreal right now 52, Minnesota 29.
Montreal sending out Viking size to face off against number 404, Firewally.
Lots of shoving and pushing. Viking size yelling for help, but manages to help himself, gets through the pack and picks up lead for Montreal.
Firewally removing that star, looking for his pivot, but he's finding a hole in that wall of Montreal, but he's going to pass it off to his pivot anyway. That's number 27, York, also the captain of the Minnesota men's roller derby team.
And Viking size paying attention, sees that happen and calls off the jam as soon as he gets out on another scoring pass. Montreal putting up 4 points on that jam. 56-29 now. Luke Nix Monster with the star for Montreal in red. 540 Merlin, MMRD ready to go.
Both teams are splitting their blockers up, hoping to provide some offense for each of their jammers. Luke Ness Monster on that outside line gets tripped up. He's going to take the inside route, but both jammers are bridged all the way back behind that pivot line.
Lukeness at the front having a rough time there. He's down to a couple of blockers. An out of play is called, but he gets up and decides to recycle just in case. Does not want to incur a penalty at this point. Merlin knocked to the inside, also recycled. Paternostro waiting for him to come in.
Baron Von Beans tried to provide some offense for Merlin, but Montreal was quick to recycle in front of him.
Paternostro picking up a penalty. She's going to sit down. That's going to leave Montreal one blocker down. Meanwhile, Lukeness getting recycled all the way around to the back by Carl Marksman. And at the front, finally lead taken by Merlin.
After over a minute of gameplay, we have our lead jammer from Minnesota.
And now Red receives the star from the jammer, becomes the inactive jammer until he puts that on. As Merlin goes to the front, had enough of that 1 minute of trying to get lead and calls it off before, I think, either one of them. No, that's not right. 4 points, actually, to Merlin. Excuse me.
Montreal with a pack disadvantage as Paternoso and PETA await the final seconds in their penalties.
Two blockers at the front while two are sitting in the penalty box for Montreal. Big disadvantage there.
Meanwhile, Saturday at the front of the pack. He's got 3 blockers from Minnesota left to beat. Egon Strangler. Jukes left, Jukes right. He is your lead jammer.
Okay. He can't take too long up front as Saturday has now made his way out of the pack, and we'll chase him down. We're going to see how quickly he can get into this, hit it and quit it. He managed to steal 1 point as he did tap off the jam and call it off. Saturday picking up nothing.
Very smart move as Minnesota slowly chips away at that Mount Royal lead. 34 Minnesota, 56 Mont Royal.
One additional point, Minnesota leading to 34, now trailing by 22.
Okay, we're going to have Jumper Cut on the line going up against Fire Wally. And again, we've got the MMRD blockers up at the front with one Montreal blocker to break things up. White Shark ready to help Jumper Cut through the pack.
Jumper Cut gave some assistance to his blockers. Oh, and he picks up a cut track penalty. That is a power jam for Fire Wally.
Okay, Fire Wally coming around and in for a scoring pass. He goes in, he gets a lot of assistance from his team. Wasn't able to get up on his feet as he tripped up a little bit. And White Shark locking things down.
Fire Wally was pushing backwards on that last blocker. Manages to get through, putting up 5 points for Minnesota.
Red out and on the track. Knocks out Fire Wally, goes all the way back. Goes all the way back, falls down to his knees, but is quick enough to get back up as Fire Wally steps back onto the track. Red and White Shark trying to slow him down. They lose track of him, and he is out.
And Jumper Cut fresh off his penalty, getting bridged back.
Samson not making it easy for Jumper Cut. Wally backing into the back of the pack. Jumper Cut finally through the pack, stays on the track with a lovely, lovely teetering move on his left skate. And Wally sees him coming, calls off the jam.
Good move on Wally, listening to instructions from his bench to call it off before Montreal could score any more points. That was a 12-point jam for Minnesota. Only 10 points separate these two teams.
And that's how you claw back bit by bit. And that's exactly what Minnesota's been doing on every jam, putting points up and locking out Montreal.
But we've still got 7 minutes left in this half and another half.
Viking Size getting ready to go up against Merlin as the jam whistle blows. Start things on. Viking Size to the front, gets lead, he gets clipped. And a clockwise block being issued to number 308. That's Carl Marksman's going to sit down. Viking Size out of the pack first, will get lead.
Merlin having a tough time behind those Montreal blockers. He's removed the star, attempting to pass it to his pivot, number 66. Samson.
Merlin getting popped out by the Rev, will get recycled. A whistle happening at the front, not sure who it is. It is one of the Minnesota blockers. It's 2 of the Minnesota blockers for out-of-play blocking. That is going to be a great advantage for Viking Size. He's going to crease the spread that is happening right now as finally Samson, receiving the star, makes his way out of the pack.
The jammer race is on. Viking Size close behind Samson. Viking Size taking advantage of the small pack situation. Oh, gets knocked to that inside. Plays it safe, recycles himself back.
And Viking Size not calling off the jam, but as lead has continued going, which has allowed Minnesota's blockers to make their way out of the penalty box. He will now contend with 4 blockers the next time around as they make their way back onto the track.
And another point 2 points scored by Montreal, bringing their total to 16 points in that jam. 4 points for Minnesota.
Last little hip twist there. Got Viking those 2 points. That's the highest scoring jam, I believe, of the first half so far. Great work. So he did not lock down the blockers, but he did manage to pick up all the points.
Sorry, I was distracted by his long braids flowing in the breeze that he created with the speed on the track.
Okay. Egon Strangler out there with the star for Minnesota. And that looks again 42, Luke Ness Monsters. So we matched up the 42s once again. They've made their way around the jammer cycle and back in against each other.
Luke Ness Monster working his way to the front of the pack as number 345, PETA, tries to provide some offense.
6:08 falling down. Baron von Beans was right there in front of the jammer, but lost his footing.
Egon Strangler pushing up against this solid wall. They're not making it easy work for him.
Luke Ness Monster is out and will pick up lead in this jam.
And as number 5, Red, ports to the penalty box, Egon Strangler made his initial pass, forcing Montreal to call it after picking up 3 points.
Jeppercut lining up against Firewally. They're both getting ready to get out there and tango. One in the box, that's Red, number 5. Red 5, wait a second, I get it now.
His jersey is red.
Star Wars, Red 5. It all makes sense. Jeppercut to the pack, and out will get lead for Montreal as Buddy Ollie sits down to join Red. Pack advantage now, MMRD. Only the Rev and Saturday out there to protect their jammer and keep the points from happening. They both pop to the front as the jammer gets knocked out.
Beautiful spin move on that outside line. Jeppercut's going to call that off.
And looking at the board, 2 points at the last second go to Montreal. 77 now to 50. 2.5 minutes left in this first half.
Up next, we've got Viking size on the line facing off against Merlin.
This matchup, once again, of course, as mentioned earlier, the rotation seems to have made its way back to what we had at the beginning. Merlin only has 2 blockers to contend with. No pack is called. They have to let him through.
Montreal did their best to try and kill that penalty, get another blocker out with them. But Minnesota is your lead jammer.
Jamatim sent to the penalty box, as is White Shark. Merlin through, calling off the jam, is going to put 4 points as that jam comes to an end with him calling it off. And looks like an official review is being requested by MMRD.
Looks like they're using it as a timeout.
We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Save On Foods, going the extra mile. They're providing food for vendors and volunteers, officials this whole weekend.
Not so much recent anymore. It's been a couple of years now, but one of the changes to official reviews that could be used as a timeout. Right. I always question, if you use your official review as a timeout, didn't you technically win the official review and therefore you should get it? You got the intended purpose of it.
Looks like White Shark is... Okay, situation is you can see right down in front of us right now. White Shark, 3-0-0, being pulled out by judge and jury. He's saying, 3-0-0, come on out. The rest of the team, Montreal, is panicking, going, no, don't step out of the penalty box. Not realizing that he was told to come back out by the ref during that official review.
If there's anyone I'm going to listen to in that scenario, it's a ref.
The stripey person, exactly. Always listen to the stripey person. They're usually always right. And on the track, it looks like number 42, Egon Strangler, is going up against Jeppercut. Jeppercut to the front. The Rev trying to help him through, doing a little big hits. Little big hit helping. And oh, jumper cut just does some big hits of himself. I don't need the rev, he says. Pushes his way through, picks up lead for Montreal.
Egon Strangler getting knocked to that outside, getting bridged back to turn number 2, still trying to complete his initial pass.
Jumper cut walking through the pack just now, going to put 5 points on a natural grand slam. Almost does it again, but gets clipped by number 87. Correction, 27, York, as he sneaks through.
Juppercut getting bridged back with Egon Strangler, putting them on somewhat even ground. Egon Strangler still has yet to complete his initial pass. Oh, another big hit by Juppercut. Just bulldozes over.
Bulldozes jam it dim right over. The MMRD players that were in the box are now back on the track. That's going to put Juppercut against 4 blockers. Right now, 1 at the back, 3. They split apart, which made that actually easy for him, even though he had more to contend with this time around. And Egon Strangler out of the pack trying to track him down.
They split for that half second. He took advantage, went right through the middle.
Looks like Juppercut's going to go for the full length of this jam. There's 29 seconds left in it, only 20 left in the period. And of course, the announcer curse says as soon as I say that, he's going to do the complete opposite. Calls off the jam. That should be the last jam of this first half.
Unless someone calls a timeout. Not this time, it's halftime.
There goes the whistle. And on that note, we are going to take a 10-minute break and or 15. It keeps changing on us up here. Sometimes they put the clock up at 15 and then it becomes 10. Stay tuned, you'll see the clock. We'll swing to it once it happens. Currently, we'll see you in about 14 and a half minutes.
My name is Will, and we'll be back momentarily. Don't go away.
Nerd Roller Skates is your dedicated quad roller skate shop in Calgary, Alberta.
Being a nerd is about being really excited and really passionate about a really specific thing. And the thing that we are really excited and passionate about is roller skates.
Nerd Roller Skates, for people who roll.
Listen to 2 left in the half. That's still time to go to the
Okay, I'm gonna climb down.
hydrated before the second half goes. Score right now 93 for Montreal, 55 for Minnesota.
And we are back with 1:05 left in this first intermission. Oh, well, the next intermission, of course, is the end of the game. Score right now, Montreal sitting at 93, Minnesota 55. A 16-point jam at the end of that last half. Montreal in the lead right now, and Minnesota's got some catching up to do.
The winner of this game is going to head to game number 5 against Denver Ground Control. The unsuccessful team will meet Dakota in game number 6. That's tonight at 7 o'clock.
Okay, and on the line, looks like Fire Wally's lining up against his typical partner in crime, Viking Size. Empty penalty box. 5 seconds being warned, and here we go. We're off to the second half.
And they're off. Viking Size shoots up that inside line, but is quickly met by Minnesota blockers.
The Rev coming in to do a little bit of house cleaning, tries to help him through, gets nowhere with that hit. Forms back up with the rest of his team and eats up Fire Wally, slowing him right down. Viking Size at the front gets out.
Fire Wally removing the star, but Montreal not quite quick enough to recycle in front of him. He's going to take his chances, keep that star to himself.
Buddy Ollie and the Rev got together at the front, but he was able to split them. Viking Size through the pack, spins around number 27 York, and calls off the jam, putting 4 points on, keeping Minnesota to 0.
Montreal sending out number 101 Jumper Cut to jam up against 540. That's Merlin.
Penalty box empty. I was looking for that fourth blocker. The Minnesota blocker lining up right with the Montreal blockers on the line, on the jam line, hoping to do something. That's York. It wasn't very successful. A whistle has been blown. I'm not sure what the penalty is. Looks like Jumper Cut's going to get a skating out of bounds penalty or blocking out of bounds. I didn't quite catch the hand sign.
Meanwhile, Merlin getting bridged back behind that jammer line, but he gets out. He is your lead jammer.
Meanwhile, White Snake. I'm just thinking hairbands, you know me. White Shark heading to the penalty box is going to put Montreal down one blocker. Merlin getting bumped around by Paternostro. Nice and hard. She is keeping him all to herself, lets him go. He gets absorbed by the other blockers as Jumper Cut leaves the penalty box.
Jumper Cut off like a shot. He is quick through that pack, but the jam is called by Merlin. Minnesota picking up 3 points in that jam, holding Montreal scoreless.
2 jams in the second half here, and we're down just 2.5 minutes elapsed so far. Minnesota leading 3, bringing them closer to Montreal's score, 97, Minnesota now 58.
Okay, Red putting the star on once again for Montreal. He's going to line up against Fire Wally, number 404. One in the box for each team now. White Shark getting released is going to put Montreal with the pack advantage. 4-3 as Red bounces his way through, gets out of the pack and picks up lead.
Fire Wally removing that star, looking for his pivot, but he gets past those Montreal blockers for his initial pass. Meanwhile, Red comes around turn number 2. A hard hit on number 27 York. And Red is through, calls it off. He picks up 4 points for Montreal.
Huge heavy hit by Red. Jumps the apex, looks at his bench. They say call it off. He does. He puts 4 up. One in the box again. That's Carl Marksman sitting in the box for MMRD. You can just see the tip of his head on your screen right now. as we have the battle, I guess, of the 42s once again. That's Lukeness Monster lining up with Egon Strangler. Pack advantage, Montreal.
Montreal has a beautiful tripod at the front with one for offense. Lukeness Monster getting bridged to the back. Egon Strangler also getting bridged to the back.
Perfect technique by Lukeness Monster, getting bridged to the back, which drew out the whole MMRD pack, which allowed him to just blow past all of them one at a time. They didn't remain together on that. He gets into the pack, calls off the jam.
He noticed Egon Strangler wasn't far behind him, so he decided not to chance it, call it off, keep it scoreless.
He did not pick up any points on that gamble. Quickly, though, that overlay just showed you 102, but that is not the case. It is still 0-0. They're stuck at 101. And we've got good old Mr. Viking Size and Firewally lining up on the jam line with nobody in the penalty box. Pretty calm penalty box this afternoon, rather.
Saturday doing some offense on that Minnesota wall. However, Viking Size opts to be a blocker, holding Firewally back.
That was not helpful, though. Firewally went around the outside as Viking went in left, and Firewally picks up lead for MMRD.
Viking Size with 2 left to beat at the top of turn number 4. Gets knocked to that inside, but is quick to get back in.
A multiplayer block being issued. They slowed him down, but did not stop him. Paula Duty going to have a seat as Viking Size comes around. Firewally into the pack, passing some hips and calling off the jam, picking up, I believe, 4 points.
That's 4 points for Firewally.
Four additional Minnesota bringing in closer to Montreal's score. 62 now on the board.
And Jeppercut lining up against Egon Strangler. One from each team in the box. We've got the Rev sitting in there with Paul of Duty. Both jammers shoving their way into the pack, and the first one out will be Jeppercut, but he's followed closely by Egon Strangler as we're going to have ourselves a little bit of a race here. Let's see what the pack does, see what Jeppercut does. Is he going to kill the penalties, or is he just going to get in, get his points, and get out?
He's going to get in, get his points, and get out. He picks up 3 points for Montreal. Meanwhile, the Rev has 2 seconds left on his penalty.
Okay, Firewally's going to find himself back out there on the jam line once again. It was not a long break for him. And Red 5 is out there with the star for Montreal.
Firewally tries to find that inside line. Montreal is quick to meet him there. Meanwhile, Red jeeking back and forth. He's getting to that outside. Tries the inside. Solid walls from both these teams.
And look at that, Firewally knocked to the inside. Buddy Ollie comes all the way back with him as the Rev bridges that back. Red at the front, starting with some hard hits, but Wally jumping that inside line will get lead for MMRD. Red getting knocked and bounced around at the back.
Minnesota putting up a good wall at the front to keep Red on his initial pass. While Firewally battling against those Red blockers. Looks like he got knocked down. He's going to call that off, play it safe.
And
he picks up, looks like 4 points.
As Buddy Ollie gets sent to the penalty box for a multiplayer block. Question being asked on the YouTube feed, are there more games? Every 2 hours today there will be games. So right now we are sitting at the 1300 hour game, the 1 p.m. game. There's a 3 o'clock game, there's a 5 o'clock game, and there's a 7 o'clock. All of those times are Pacific times, West Coast, Canada.
So the next game you're going to see the number 1 seed Philadelphia Hooligans going up against the winner of game 1. That's the Race City Rebels. That game happening at 3 o'clock Pacific time.
And Merlin on the track is out of the pack first and will pick up lead as Viking Size finally goes to the penalty box for a cutting the track penalty. Power jam, MMRD.
A much needed power jam from Minnesota as they sit 40-ish points behind. I don't want to do math right now. Merlin beats the last blocker for Montreal. He is through for 5 points for Minnesota.
Merlin coming back around on another scoring pass on this power jam. He's got 3 blockers to deal with. No bridging happening. A little too late by Buddy Ollie allows Merlin to get through. Viking Size just comes in like a wrecking ball, taking everybody out and down. Gets to the pack on that initial pass finally as Merlin goes in for some more points. Hits it, spins, picks up 2, and calls off the jam.
Smart move by Merlin. Viking Size took advantage of that 30-second break and was firing on all 4 cylinders as soon as he was out of the box.
12 points going to Minnesota Roller Derby. Score right now sitting 104-78, as you can see on your overlay. And on the track, Jumper Cut is going to line up against Egon Strangler. Penalty box sitting with 1 from each team. Montreal loses their blocker out of the penalty box first, so they are up to 4 blockers, but that does not help anything as Egon Strangler makes his way out of the pack first with lead.
Egon Strangler rounding the track to make his first scoring pass. Meanwhile, Jumper Cut is getting called for a back block.
The original hand sign looked like a cutting the track. Yes, back block to Jumper Cut. He looks at the bench, goes, I'm at 6 now, guys.
It's not a good position to be in with 19 minutes left in this half.
Egon Strangler at the front, pushing up against PETA. And on the other side of that, Marcus trying to slow things down. PETA Saturday taking a swing and a miss with his backside, unable to lock things down.
Egon Strangler gets some instructions from his bench to call the jam, getting Minnesota to start on a power jam. Jumper Cut serving his remaining seconds.
Looks like that was a tactic by the MMRD to lock down the jammer. They may be aware that he's only on 6 and he's going to come back out on this one. So he has a chance of getting fouled out if he comes back on and gets a penalty. Expect to see a star pass on this.
I guess that's why Red is wearing the pivot cover for Montreal.
Red out there locking things down with Fire Wally. Fire Wally glued those wheels down to the floor, but he picks up a cut penalty.
He picked up a cut. That Montreal jammer stepped half an inch behind him. But Red, with the pivot cover, is in the penalty box, meaning Jumper Cut is going to have to fight through this pack.
And stay clean is what's key about Jumper Cuts. Ooh, I heard a whistle. And there it is.
Sounds like number 7 for Jumper Cut, a cut track penalty.
I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Giving the teams an opportunity to.
We will see what the NSOs do. He may have miscalculated his penalties, but back on the track, Firewally's out there and into the pack on this power jam with 1 minute and 2 seconds left in this jam. Firewally going up against White Shark and his team, who are locking him down and not letting him get far. Paternostro, last line of defense, has to let him through.
Firewally rounding the top of the apex up against that wall of red blockers. They just have a solid wall of blockers.
And Red sitting in front of Wally. Buddy Ollie coming to join him. Wally losing his helmet cover, quickly told by his bench that he had. So we didn't have any awesome taking off without the jammer cover.
It's kind of an important part of the uniform, that star, you know?
Especially if you want some points. And it looks like Jumpercut was not on 7 as he thought he was.
I believe he was on his 6th. So he might have one more left in him if he goes out again to play.
I did see the penalty box manager lean over and talk to him. So yes, most likely he told him how many penalties he was on.
106 to 88.
Wow.
Score right now.
So we actually had a jam where both teams did some scoring. That's kind of not being a constant during this game. And yeah, 106 to 88 right now for Montreal. Penalty box sitting one person in it. That's Sampson for MMRD. And on the track, it looks like Luke Nismonster's lining up against Merlin.
And the jam is on. The Rev shoots up to provide some offense for Luke Ness-Monster. He's knocked to the outside and bridged back. Merlin also knocked to the outside and bridged back.
For number 42, Lucas Monster, unsuccessful, having to come back around behind.
Karl Mark's been taking Luke Ness-Monster all the way to the back. Luke Ness almost out. That's going to be a low block, no doubt. Yes, clipping the wheels. Jam it dim. Lift his little foot out there as Luke Ness went by. Picks up a penalty.
The jammers are taking turns getting recycled to the back. We haven't made it past turn number 2. Oh, and as I say that, Luke Ness-Monster. He is not your lead jammer, though. That is a no pass, no penalty. Merlin is your lead jammer from Minnesota. He gets instructions from his bench to call it, which he does, a scoreless jam.
No doubt you heard them because they're standing about 15 feet to our right as we announce here behind the penalty box. So to the bottom of your screen when you see the camera. Oh, I can't lift my hand up high enough for you to see, but yes, we are sitting right behind the penalty box. On
where
the
we
track.
have pivots for both teams in the penalty box. It looks like Minnesota's pivot will be out first. Egon Strangler, quick to the front of that pack. Oh, almost gets out, but he is knocked out by number 345, PETA of Montreal.
And Viking size knocked to the inside. Penalty being issued, I'm not sure on who. Okay, there we go, on number 608. Baron von Beans is going to sit down for MMRD. And Viking size calls off the jam.
First jam round does not lead. Second jammer calling it off. Any points to be picked up.
Another scoreless jam for these teams. Minnesota slowly chipping away at the Montreal's lead. Only 22 points separating these two teams.
Firewall and the Red are going to attempt their best to change that.
Okay, Red with the star for Montreal goes through, gets tripped up. Rolls, but stays in bounds when he does it. So he results in a lead jammer status. Firewally getting recycled, quickly comes back, takes off his helmet cover, gets ready for a star pass. Marcus sitting down in front of us in the penalty box for Montreal.
Did a beautiful little tuck roll, managed to keep his feet in bounds somehow, I don't know, and currently he's being called off for a cut track.
That's right. However, discussing with the ref, he's like, did my foot go out? On a different play. And yeah, he is in the penalty box. That will be a power jam for Firewally, who will not have lead. This means this will be a full 2-minute jam with 1 minute and 15 seconds left in it.
And with the penalty box full of Montreal blockers, Firewally only has 2 to beat on the track. That's the Rev and number 50, Buddy Ollie.
So many people in the box that they actually have to use the whiteboard to call in other skaters on penalties, and that is exactly what's happening. Buddy Ollie is coming back in to the box. Again, the penalty box filling up. The Rev now joining Buddy Ollie. That's going to sit down Firewally on a power jam. Correction, not on a power jam, but Firewally out there in front. Red has some catching up to do. No lead on this jam. Oh.
Beautiful apex jump on that inside. You can see Red
And the crowd
celebrating.
goes
He
wild.
Can't believe he landed it either. 4 points for Montreal.
That was pretty impressive.
Back in the starting zone once more. The Red 5 and the collision with 808.
Firewally taking a chance on the outside. He's looking inside. He's looking outside. He's still got 2 to beat on that Montreal. Meanwhile, Red, a beautiful spin move, and the jam is called.
Oh, and as he spun, it looks like he bumped into Carl Marksman. I'm not sure if a penalty will be assessed on that or if it was incidental. Nobody's heading in right now. Red. That was like on 1 foot. You can't control where you go when that happens. Beautiful, though.
Incidental. But that was a 22-point jam from Minnesota, bringing them even closer to Montreal's 120 points.
Team timeout being called by Montreal. And that'll give us a chance to talk about Nerd Roller Skates. Nerd Roller Skates, Calgary, Alberta. I'm missing all the text that we had up when we were on the live call. But $150 or more spent, they will ship to anywhere in Canada.
In Canada.
In Canada. Nerdrollerskates.com, if I'm not mistaken. They also have the brick and mortar store in Calgary, Alberta, where, as I mentioned earlier, I got plates mounted just the other day. It didn't even take 24 hours to get them done. It was great service, and they took great care of my new skates.
Nerd skates for people who roll.
Absolutely. You can see the strategies changing a little bit on both sides. Now that they've really kind of figured out where the other team is sitting and where their strengths are.
That was my mom.
Your
She
mom
doesn't know
loves you.
She doesn't know we're on the live feed, so she came over to say hi. She's here to visit her granddaughter.
You know, we're not just here talking to ourselves with microphones. They actually are hooked up to something.
Yeah. So with that timeout being over, it looks like Lukeness Monsters on the line with the star for the Montreal. And I don't see a jammer yet for MMRD out there, nor a team. Oh, that's because MMRD was waiting to call their own respective timeout. Okay, we all know Derby costs money, and we all know that doing a live feed, a live stream, is not free. You have to get the internet connection. You have to make it work. You have to buy the equipment, all that stuff. So please, help us out. Make a donation. Help cover the cost of the live feed. You can send a PayPal to finance@mainlandmisfits.com. Any amount helps. You know what? If you're going to buy a coffee for a friend today, instead of buying a coffee for a friend today, spend that $200, $300, $400, $200 if you're going to Starbucks for a coffee, right? It's kind of expensive. Send it this way. Help support the live feed.
Oh, a Starbucks snob, are we? Also, those details are posted on the Facebook event page if you didn't catch finance@mainlandmisfits.com.
Definitely playing the defense, knowing that if they let too much to chance, that they're going to lose that.
And the penalty box is empty as we start the warning whistle for the next jam. And it looks like Merlin has gone out there for MMRD. He's going to go up against Lukeness Monster. Score only a 10-point spread right now, and we've got 11 minutes.
It's anybody's game.
I was going to say it could go either way, but you beat me to a better statement.
Merlin getting knocked to that outside. Bridge back by Montreal. Meanwhile, Lukeness Monster also bridge back. This pack not making it easy for them to round turn one.
It's just going to get harder from this point on. Of course, both teams vying for that win so that they can go play against Denver. Denver having already played today. So at 1900, that will be a advantage. Well, both teams will have played, I guess, at that point.
Absolutely, and of course, all the teams here at the North American qualifier are vying for a playoff spot at the MRDA Championships.
In Wales, that's correct. And this pack is still on turn one. They have not moved past that point. Lukeness getting knocked down, Merlin getting locked up. No progress is being made except for a couple of feet at a time as they push forward.
1 minute through the jam, we still don't have a lead jammer. Neither of these have made their initial pass. Oh, and of course.
The announcer curse. There you go. You said it. It happened. That's how we do it in the announcing world. And a cut track penalty being called out, but just to one of the blockers. But that's jumper cut. That could be his seventh, and he may not return to track.
He's not looking too happy about that penalty. He was hoping that going out as a blocker might save him from that seventh penalty, but just wasn't in the cards.
Right, and Merlin puts 5 points on the board, but gets knocked to the middle as he comes in for another scoring pass. And a star pass has been executed by the Montreal. Pita now with the star on his helmet. Merlin gets through and matter-of-factly taps his hips. I believe he's going to pick up 4 points on that pass. 1 point game.
1 point game with 9.5 minutes left.
Penalty box looking for a sub from Montreal. The Rev is going to take the spot of Juppercut, as Juppercut has fouled out, sadly.
Viking Size facing off on the jam line against Egon Strangler. Viking Size trying to funnel Egon into that inside. Egon Strangler jeeking around on that outside. Viking Size was first out of the pack, but he is not your lead jammer. That status goes to Egon Strangler.
This pack is moving quick. Pack advantage to Montreal. Viking gets in, doesn't pass any hips to my knowledge. And that is a 0-0 jam, even though all that action happened in it. On the track now, Red, number 5 for Montreal. 404 Fire Wally ready to go for MMRD. 1 in the box for MMRD. Red communicating with White Shark as he approaches the pack. You can hear him, yeah, hit it. Times it properly, but does not get anywhere. And finally, has to do the work himself, gets out, will get lead for the Montreal.
White Shark was lined up in the middle of that Minnesota tripod, ready to go, but he is getting called for a penalty.
Firewally out of the pack as Red is at the front of it, trying to make his way through. Let's see if he's paying attention. He is. He calls off the jam before Firewally can make his way in. 2 points. That's 2 points that they didn't have a minute ago. 3 point game.
Of course, Montreal came into this tournament seated at number 3. Minnesota seated at number 6, but that is not reflected in the score right now. Only 3 points separating these two teams.
Yes, this is definitely, I can't say it's the tightest game yet because we had that wonderful finish at the beginning. The first game, of course, was Race City Rebels taking it 149 over Austin Anarchy, 146. And right now, like I said, 3 point game, and we are off. Viking Size is playing against Merlin. Merlin at the front was Super Dave and the Rev. Super Dave, Saturday, my mistake. Oh!
Viking Size up the middle, a hop, skip, and a jump. He is your lead jammer.
Did he just jump the pack? Because it certainly looked like it. That was pretty
impressive. It looked like it. I wouldn't put it past him with those long legs.
And then Viking into the pack, passes some hips. That's going to get him some points. He calls it off, keeping Merlin from any points. Let's see what the board says. 3 points to Montreal. 6 point game now. They've doubled that spread.
Ever so slightly out, 125. A 6 point difference over Minnesota at 119.
Minnesota sending out number 42, Egon Strangler, up
Red.
against Red, number 5.
Red having some success in the jamming position. Smart move by Montreal. I'm not sure how many penalties he's at, but he's doing well. It works. Let's keep going with it. Red to the outside and sneaks around and through. Again, there's the measure of success is right there.
Minnesota trying to pop back to provide offense. Egon Strangler getting knocked to that inside and bridge back. Meanwhile, the Red on the outside. He gets bridged back by Minnesota.
Egon Strangler out of the pack will finally get through on that initial pass as Red gets through, gets points, calls it off, locks down Egon Strangler. That is a 5 point pass. That is exactly what they need right now. They're feeling a little secure. There's still 5 minutes and 16 seconds in this. Could go either way.
It could, but as long as Montreal keeps getting those lead jams, I think we're going to see short jams as they get their points and call it before Minnesota can get anything in there.
Good old hit it and quit it, and we have a timeout being called by the captain of Minnesota men's roller derby. That's York. Hits it as that 30 seconds gets yelled. Or correction, the 5 seconds. And here we go, timeout, MMRD.
Station up behind the tower where the camera is. Capturing all the footage from the Salish Slam.
Hope you're enjoying the feed. Of course, as mentioned earlier, the next game will be at 3 o'clock, 1500, which is in 36 minutes from now. We've got 5 minutes left, just over 5 minutes left in this game. Of course, we know that 5 minutes can kind of extend itself a little bit. But yes, your next game will be on the hour, and that will be the Philadelphia Hooligans playing against the Race City Rebels, who beat Austin Anarchy this morning.
Comment on the Facebook event about the sales season, about how you're here.
That's right. Minnesota is doing a great job of getting back into this, Yusuf. Too little, too late? We don't know. There's still 5 minutes left in this. They've adjusted the clock. It's under 5 minutes now, 4 minutes, 58 seconds. They just got to keep pounding away and trying to get those points. But, of course, that's exactly what Montreal is doing, hitting it and quitting it, getting that lead. That is key. I think whoever gets lead could possibly keep winning this, and that's what they need.
Minnesota sending out Firewally, hoping to turn the tables. Hopefully they can get a lead jam out of this, rack up some more points.
Oh, Wally and Buddy Ollie are locking arms. Neither one of them incurring a penalty.
But Viking Size on that outside line picks up lead jam status.
Firewally out of the pack now as Viking Size makes his way in. He's going to get through. He's going to look over his shoulder and see what's going on. Looks to the bench. Somebody yelled call, so he calls. 4 points for him.
Another couple of seconds off that clock. Note that the Montreal lead with 15 and 134.
Lining up on the jam line, Merlin and Red are going to try to get this done in the next jam. Completely empty penalty box.
Montreal sending up some offense from White Shark, but Red is still fighting against that wall of white. Merlin pushing up against a solid wall of Montreal. They've got him locked down at the pivot line. He's chipping away slowly, but Red is your lead jammer.
Merlin was moving inches at a time as he was leaning with all his weight into that, doing that whole dinosaur move of keeping his back up nice and straight and getting in and pushing. Still on his initial pass, locked down as Red makes his way through on a first scoring pass. 5 points going on to him. Buddy Ollie getting sent to the penalty box. Not sure what the penalty was. He's going to come down.
Merlin opting to take off the star, planning out his next move. But he made it past those Mount Royal blockers.
Red losing his footing, but still tangoing with a couple of blockers. Gets out, gets his points, looks back, and calls off the jam.
5 more points on the board for Montreal.
The key to what's happening right now is, you can't see it, but the benches. Benches right now, MMRD, only 3 skaters sitting, able to rotate in. Montreal sitting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have the advantage. They have 3 more skaters than MMRD does right now. I said 3, they have 4, my mistake. But they've just got fresher legs. They've got more people they can rotate in, and I think that might do the make the difference here.
It doesn't seem to be hindering Minnesota that much, as they are giving Montreal a run for its money.
Oh.
Meanwhile, Firewally, first out the pack, saw Viking right behind him. He's going to call that off.
You know what? You don't have to waste time dancing around. We need to get points, so they need to get back out and get lead and try to make it happen. Firewally remains on the track, but they put out Saturday. Montreal putting Saturday out to jam, I want to say for one of the first times on his own, not receiving a star pass.
That could be. I haven't been keeping track. But we've got 2 minutes left in this game. Let's see if Minnesota can turn this around.
And Wally pounces off the whistle, gets up front, Paternostro and White Shark slowing things down with Red, who has moved into a blocking position.
Buddy Ollie out of the box, giving some offense to Saturday. Minnesota quick to reform in front of him.
White Shark getting called on a blocking out of bounds. As he was pushing into that triangle, he stepped with his foot out of bounds, which became blocking out of bounds. he is in the penalty box. Saturday out of the pack and around, but meanwhile, Firewally tracking him only a half lap behind.
Saturday took advantage of those cheers from the crowds, gave him the energy he needed to get lead jam. He picks up 4 points and calls it.
Of course, the crowd energy that he's detecting as timeout is being called by MRDA. The crowd energy is the fact that the Montreal are the only Canadian team in this weekend. So, of course, all the Canadians that are local, Vancouver Murder, that are kicking around, are cheering for him.
It's close enough to the home team, I suppose. Home country, same thing.
And so with that timeout, of course, we're going to do a little shout out to Nerd Roller Skate sponsoring the timeouts today. Remember, in Canada, if you order more than $150 worth of goodies, shipping will be free, Canada only. NerdRollerskates.com.
And really, since it came that 1 point difference between the two teams, that double time out, things have gone off.
Montreal with enough blockers in the penalty box that as you can see the penalty, well, you can't see it. If we were to pan down a little bit, you'd see that the penalty box manager has his whiteboard up and is waiting to bring in another Montreal blocker once this game starts, because there are 2 in there right now and nobody can fit there. And Montreal calls for an official review. Whether or not it's going to be taken as a timeout or not, I don't know, but they are definitely calling it.
But what I was going to say is,
Montreal probably hoping to get some fresh blockers on the track since they have to leave the one out there who incurred a penalty in the last jam.
And it does look like it is an official review being requested. Paternostro out there requesting and discussing with the ref what the penalty is. That's Buddy Ollie actually doing the talking, as you can see.
And just for clarity, this is an official review being requested by Montreal. Oh, interesting. It's an official review being used as a review.
So let us look at what we've got in front of us. We've got a game, as mentioned earlier, coming up at the top of the hour in half an hour. Philadelphia Hooligans going up against Race City Rebels. And then 2 hours past that at 1700 local is going to be the Denver Ground Control against whoever wins this game. With 44 seconds left in the game, 148 to 119. It looks like it will be the Montreal. Don't quote me on that, but I'm just feeling mathematically that could be the case. And then after that, at 7 o'clock p.m., we've got Dakota Men's Roller Derby going up against
The unsuccessful team from this current
We don't say
game.
loser? The team that loses this game? We can be politically correct. The unsuccessful team of this game
Successful.
will go up against Dakota Men's Roller Derby at 1900 hours tonight, local time, Pacific, Canada.
No, I would
Savings
consider
time?
this a moral victory for Minnesota. They
definitely
came
with
here
the
with a
spread.
short roster.
I can imagine if someone was to punch numbers to what the spread was supposed to be. Yeah, they did well. They definitely did well.
I can't even argue that. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
Sadly, we're not mic'd into the middle, so we don't know what the official review is about. We don't know what the official result is. We do see a spinning of the hand of Judge Injury. So I don't think there was any change. Looking at the board, it's flashing. Is it going to stay there or is it going to disappear? You can't see the flashing dot, but we have it on the local screen here. And it's gone, so they lost their official review, whatever it may have been. And on the track, we got Firewally going hard and fast up against PETA.
Firewally is your lead jammer. As Buddy Ollie reports in for his penalty.
Oh, I'm hearing somebody yell power jam, and that's because Viking Size has got a cut track penalty and will head to the penalty box. Merlin is now going to have a chance to make up a whole lot of points with a power jam. A call out. Oh, So calls off the jam. There's 5 seconds left. The coach runs over with the timeout sign as the rest of the team goes, no, 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 you don't have any left. It's an official review timeout you want. And she changed hand signals at the last second.
That was close. That made me a little nervous.
That could have been a penalty.
It's like, don't call it now.
That was scary.
But now I understand
Yeah.
what they're doing.
But not just that,
I
but
see
when-
their strategy.
When she ran up doing the timeout sign, that was a, uh-oh, you're about to get a penalty if they call that whistle, and it's because you did that. I don't know how flexible the refs are if you go, oh, no, 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 I meant. I want to say that wouldn't cut it.
Not at
It all
this
depends.
level.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think they expect you to know your stuff.
Yeah, so that's it. We've got 3 seconds left, so we will probably pull out one more jam in this. 148 to 124, that's a 24-point spread in 2 minutes. A good jammer can pick up at least 25 in a good jam if all the blockers are really bad.
And that means that Minnesota would have to hold Viking size back, keeping Montreal scoreless.
Now, Viking size is in the penalty box. How many seconds is he in there for? I do not recall. Maybe he probably got 10 down out of there. I'm not really tracking that, but that should be interesting. So that gives him a 10-second or more power start. Merlin is out there. He is in. Montreal is down. Merlin has the track to himself against Saturday, and he pushes through and gets lead.
Minnesota put all their faith in Merlin, and it paid off. He is the lead jammer for the last jam. Meanwhile, Viking size standing for the remaining seconds of his penalty, and he is out.
Merlin at the front is momentarily moving and then gets stopped. Gets an inch, gets stopped, gets knocked out, recycled. Viking size looks like he's going to get his initial pass done. And this is not what Merlin needs, because Viking size can now get in and score points to match up with anything that Merlin grabs.
Viking size taking that outside line.
You can
It's hard to see because Montreal
I was
team
about to say, you
is
can just
all
see
standing
Montreal
on the
standing
sidelines.
together off to the left. Viking size through the pack. He will put points while Merlin has put points himself. But that's not what they need. They don't need matching points. They need all the points.
Merlin has the advantage to call it off, but he's not giving up so quickly. He's going to fight for as many points as he can get in this last jam.
Sadly, for every minute or every second he doesn't call it, that gives Viking size a chance to get through and call it, and Merlin decides that this punishment is not worth it. He lands on his butt, calls off the jam. Montreal, 156.
Minnesota, 129. That is our unofficial score, yet to be confirmed momentarily.
What an amazing battle by both teams. Montreal, Minnesota should be very proud of what they did. They did a great job with the amount of people that they had. Came through, and that was close at the end there. It could have gone in that last jam or two. Luckily, Montreal stayed firm and held their position. Okay, so with that, we're going to let you go, and we're going to see you guys later. Like I said, at the hour, this game is starting up. That will be the Philadelphia Hooligans going up against the Race City Rebels.
And of course, this is only day one of the Salish Sea Slam. There'll be more games tomorrow, too, so stick around.
I was G.I. Jones.
And I'm Sonia Blade.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Nerd Roller Skates is your dedicated quad roller skate shop in Calgary, Alberta.
Being a nerd is about being really excited and really passionate about a really specific thing. And the thing that we are really excited and passionate about is roller skates.
Nerd Roller Skates, for people who roll.